Hi, I'm Sam. We are here to read the Word of God. Thank you so much for joining. This is day 18. We'll be in Genesis chapters 19 through 21. Let's read the passages, do some highlights, and then come back and discuss further. All right, here we go. This is in the English Standard Version, Genesis chapter 19. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening. Then Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way. They said, No, we will spend the night in the town square. But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man, surrounded the house. And they called to Lot, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, I beg you, brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have two daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof. But they said, Stand back. And they said, This fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. Then they pressed hard against the man Lot and drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door. Then the men said to Lot, Have you anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city, bring them out of the place, for we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against its people has become great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and said to his sons-in-law, who were to marry his daughters, Up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city. But he seemed to his sons-in-law to be jesting. As morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, Up, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city. But he lingered. So the men seized him and his wife and his two daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. And as they brought them out, one said, Escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away. And Lot said to them, Oh, no, my lords. Behold, your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life. But I cannot escape to the hills, lest the disaster overtake me and I die. Behold, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is a little one. Let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my life will be saved. He said to him, Behold, I grant you this favor also, that I will not overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Escape there quickly, for I can do nothing till you arrive there. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities, and all the valley, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But Lot's wife, behind him, looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. And he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the valley. And he looked, and behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. So it was that, when God destroyed the cities of the valley, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. Now Lot went up out of Zoar and lived in the hills with his 2 daughters, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. So he lived in a cave with his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come into us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that he may preserve offspring from our father." So that we may preserve offspring from our father, rather. So they made their father drink wine that night. When the firstborn went in and lay with her father, he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. The next day the firstborn said to the younger, "Behold, I lay last night with my father. Let us make him drink wine tonight also. Then you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father." So they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. The younger also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites to this day. Chapter 20. From there Abraham journeyed toward the territory of the Negeb and lived between Kadesh and Shur, and he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "Behold, you are a dead man, because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." Now Abimelech had not approached her. So he said, "Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not himself say to me, 'She is my sister'? And she herself said, 'He is my brother.' In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands I have done this." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart, and it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours." So Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all these things. And the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done." And Abimelech said to Abraham, "What did you see that you did this thing?" Abraham said, "I did it because I thought, there is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, 'This is the kindness you must do to me. At every place to which we come, say of me, he is my brother.' Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen, and male servants and female servants, and gave them to Abraham, and returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, 'Behold, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you.' To Sarah he said, 'Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you, and before everyone you are vindicated.' Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, and also healed his wife and female slaves, so that they bore children. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife." Chapter 21. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. So she said to Abraham, cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about a distance of a bowshot. For she said, let me not look on the death of the child. And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy. And the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. Then she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with a bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my descendants, or with my posterity. But as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and with the land where you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. When Abraham reproved Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized, Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart. And Abimelech said to Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? He said, these 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. All right, back to chapter 19. The 2 angels have left Abraham and come to Sodom to destroy it. Lot is sitting in the city gate, which means he is in a place of esteem in the city. He sees the men and recognizes there's something different about them and wants them to come to his house, presumably because he knows that the city is vile and wicked. He pressed them strongly, and they came and entered his house where he made them a feast. You'll notice he makes baked unleavened bread. This comes to symbolize food to be made and eaten in haste. He didn't have time for it to rise, but this becomes a symbol in the future. The men of the city, young and old, gather around. Now, the word sodomy comes from Sodom. These men of the city are engaging in deviant sexual acts. They have left the covenantal marriage-based design that God put in place, which is a man and a woman, procreating, building families. Young and old, every man in the city is coming out, banging on the door, wanting to know where the men were at. The phrase, bring them out to us that we may know them, means to have sex with them. In other words, they wanted to gang rape them. Lot offers his 2 daughters, who are virgins. They do not listen to Lot on this. In fact, they are quite angry because he is condemning them, saying that this fellow came here just as a traveler and he's become a judge. Now, this phrase, we will deal worse with you than with them, means they intend to gang rape him in a more violent way. So not only are they engaged in deviant sexual acts, they are just into flat-out violence. So they try to grab Lot, and they press so hard on him they nearly break the door down. Now the angels inside open the door, grab Lot, and drag him back inside. These men outside the house are then struck with blindness. I'm highlighting this verse because I want you to notice that the men, these wicked men, even after they are blinded, are wearing themselves out groping for the door. Even in blindness, they're trying to get to that door, man. This has this has shades of The Walking Dead. All right. The wickedness has been on full display right here. The angels tell Lot and his family that they are there to destroy the city, and they gotta go. Okay, verse 16. We notice that after the angels have told Lot and his family that they've got to leave because they are there to destroy the city, that for some reason, Lot is doing what I call jerking around, just hanging around, man. He was lingering, so much so that the men seized their hands and took them outside of the city immediately. They were given a commandment, Lot, his wife, and the 2 daughters, that when they leave, one rule: don't look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Get to the hills, lest you be swept away. One rule: go that way and keep going, don't look back. This has echoes of the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve were told not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. One rule. Lot, his wife and daughter, said one rule: don't look back. He told them to get away quickly. He did allow Lot to go to a small town called Zoar, which means little, to go to this little town instead of going up into the hills. That didn't work out too well in Zoar, as we'll see in a moment. But again, just go. Well, as they're walking away, Lot's wife, here in verse 26, pivots and looks back. The one rule she decided not to keep. She was turned to a pillar of salt. We don't know if she was in love with the city or if she had morbid curiosity. The action was she pivoted and looked back. All right, verse 29. Notice the grace of God towards Lot. So it was that when God destroyed the cities of the valley, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out in the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. God is showing special favor to Lot because of his relationship with Abraham. Now, is Lot a righteous man as well? He's making some bad decisions here. We won't find out whether God perceived, no, it's not a perception. God knows everything, sorry. We won't know whether God calls Lot righteous or not until we get to 2 Peter, I believe it is. That's a long ways in the future. We'll read about it in November or December. Remind me to remind you that we were looking for the answer to this question. All right. Now, Lot, just to set the stage here, we've read it, but just clarify a little bit perhaps. Lot is with his daughters. They've left this little town of Zoar. He was a very wealthy man living in an urban area, a city at least, with his wife and daughters. His wife is now dead. The flocks are gone. The money is gone. He has lost apparently everything, but God has been gracious to him and saved his life. He's now living in a cave with his two daughters. A bunker, a shelter is the way I see it. This is the way I imagine it. Not a good living situation. They're not around people. They're isolated. The daughters believe that they are not ever going to have a man and therefore will never have children. So they decide not to wait on the Lord. We talked about this a couple of days ago. Wait on the Lord. But these women decide to make Lot drunk and lie with him to have offspring from their father. And they do. There is not a mention of incest at this point. Everything in this, however, meaning it's not in the law yet because there's not a law, but everything says this is wrong. Their conscience would have been violated. If they thought it was okay, they would have talked to Lot, who would have refused, presumably. But they got him drunk. They made him senseless, where he was so drunk that he didn't perceive their coming in and going out. No, Lot chose to drink, and drink plenty. The result is that they are both pregnant. The first one, the one daughter has a child named Moab, and the second one a child named Ben-Ami. They did not hide that they had had relationships with their father. The name Moab means of my father. Ben-Ami means of my kindred, I believe is the meaning of those two names. The Moabites and the Ammonites, you can imagine, just ask yourself, do I think that the Moabites are going to be great people? How about those Ammonites? Do I think they're going to be great? All right. Bad decisions. Horrible decisions. Let's go to Abraham and Abimelech. This is chapter 20, verse 2. Abram is still saying of his wife. Now, this is part 2, deuce, however you want to say it. If you'll recall, years earlier, Abraham and Sarah went into the land of Egypt. They went into a dangerous place for a man with a beautiful wife because Pharaoh was judge, jury, and executioner. If Pharaoh saw a beautiful woman and he wanted her, all he'd have to do is just kill her husband. No problemo. So why? Well, it was a problem, but he would do it. So why did Abraham go into Egypt with Sarah, his wife? Because they were starving. There was a famine in the land. So they went into a dangerous place. Abraham, in fear of his life, asked Sarah to say that she was his brother. While technically true, he was. They had the same father, different mothers. When they went into Egypt, indeed, Pharaoh did see Sarah and say that she was very beautiful and took her as his wife. Now, there is no cleaning up of that message in the first encounter. I assume it seems pretty obvious that Pharaoh had Sarah for a while and he would have had relationships with her. They had sex, to be candid, which would have been a very, very difficult thing for Abraham. But in that, God did rescue them out of it. They took a lot of the material. They were blessed financially when God showed up and gave a series of plagues on Pharaoh and his household. Pharaoh gave Abraham his wife back. You recall that whole story. Okay, I hadn't clarified earlier how bad it probably was there. In this case, we have fast forwarded at some point. Abraham now has a son, Ishmael, by Hagar, and Sarah has been promised a child with Abraham. His name is going to be Isaac. That baby is going to come from Abraham. Abraham going into this, presumably she is not pregnant yet. They're going to be in the presence or nearby Abimelech, king of Gerar, who Abraham does not believe honors God. He is wary for his life. You would think perhaps that Abraham, knowing he's going to have a son, would have full faith in God that he would be protected and he would not lie. This looks like a character flaw. Now, what I would say out of that is that God uses people who have character flaws. There is nobody perfect who's ever walked the earth save one. Abraham is not a perfect man. He is a righteous man. He has a ton of faith. He is a father of faith. God has a covenant with him to have a child, Isaac, through which all nations will be blessed, and more. However, he made a mistake here, to me. God comes to Abimelech and tells him that he has got another man's woman who is a prophet. We will see that this is the first time that God uses the word prophet, and that would be Abraham. God warned him in a dream that he had somebody else's wife and that he was a dead man. Now, Abimelech reminds God that he had integrity in his heart as far as he knew they were brother and sister. And God agrees. Yes, you did have integrity in your heart. However, you've got to give her back. But he says something else as well. This is fascinating. Right here, verse 6. Yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart, and it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Okay. I would just say, if God can keep someone from sinning, it's a wonderful idea to pray for the protection of your loved ones, of your wife, of your husband, depending on which you have, of your children. In this case, God was protecting this relationship. There was going to be no confusion over who the father of Isaac was. He's told to return his wife so that Abraham can pray for him and he'll be able to live. All right. Which Abimelech rises up early in the morning and says, this is not good. He tells his men, and they are all very much afraid. And they went to Abraham. And Abimelech questions Abraham, and rightly so. What did you see that you did this thing to me? Why would you do this? It's a good question. Abraham's answer is that he was operating in fear. You'll notice a shade of Eve right here. When God caused me to wander from my father's house, it looks like he's just blaming a little bit on God. God made me wander. So, yeah, I was afraid. So he asked his wife a big ask. The kindness you must do for me is that every place you come to, say he is my brother. That, as I said a couple of days ago, is a big ask. That's way beyond asking your wife to make a sandwich or asking your wife to help with the house or to get you a clean shirt or etc. That's a big ask. And he asked Sarah and she did it. Well, Abimelech has now had a conversation with God. He is afraid. He has asked for prayers for healing for he and his people. Now, Abimelech actually goes so far as to offer Abraham to stay there in his area. This is amazing. I trust it's out of fear of God. He has a conversation with Sarah. This is pretty striking. He says, I've given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Now you notice he lets her keep her dignity. She said, that's my brother. But he said, he went ahead and went with it. I've given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver, worth about $30,000 from my understanding. That's a sign of innocence in the eyes of anybody who would look at you and before everyone that you are vindicated. You are set free. You are in the clear. You did nothing wrong. All right. It's gracious. After the prayer, the wombs of the women were opened up. The baby factories were closed across the land. The Lord had closed all of the wombs of Abimelech's wife and slaves and women in the area. All right. Of his house. All right, let's move to the birth of Isaac. This is chapter 3. So Abraham called the name of a son who was born to him. This is about a year later now. Sarah has born him Isaac, which you'll recall means he laughs. On the 8th day, just as God had instructed Abraham, he circumcised his son. He followed through on exactly what God told him to do. The child grew and was weaned. Now, Abraham made a great feast on that day when he was weaned. The reason that they would have, this is a Jewish tradition, the reason that they do this is because they're celebrating that the child has passed the dangers of childhood. He would probably be 4 or 5 years old. He was not like children today are weaned when they're 8 or 9 months old and we start moving them to solid food. They didn't do that then. They breastfed much longer. So they're at this party, at this feast, and Sarah sees the son of Hagar the Egyptian, who is Ishmael, laughing or sneering or jeering. I'm not sure what the translation is there. It's not complimentary. He's not just over there having fun. He's laughing in a derogatory way. Sarah has had enough. She goes and says, "Get rid of this slave woman with her son Ishmael, for the son of this slave woman shall not be an heir with my son Isaac." Well, this is troubling to Abraham because he has a son and he loves his son. It would be displeasing to me as well. In fact, I've had some problems, just candidly, I have some problems over this, not understanding what this passage actually meant. And I think I do now. I picked it up recently, like yesterday. If I've got it correct now, and I think I do. All right. Verse 12, God actually joins in and says, don't be displeased because of the boy, because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah tells you, do as she tells you. For through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. There are several things here. Let me explain this for just a minute. This will take me the longest of any of these verses, probably. All right. Ishmael was 13 years old when he was circumcised. That is the same time, virtually, it is the same time that Isaac was promised that he would be born a year later. So by the time Isaac is born, he's 14. By the time Isaac is weaned, Ishmael is likely 18 years old. He is a young man. All right? He's not a baby. This is, in today's time, military age. I have 3 sons, and each of them joined the military at about this age. So he's fighting age. God has already prophesied, told, informed that Ishmael would be a wild donkey of a man, that he would be at enmity with his brothers, that he would always be fighting with his kinsmen. He was going to be a contentious man. And here he is at the age of 18, a young man still, but sneering at the young man who would ultimately be the fourth father of a great nation, of a beautiful lineage of God's covenantal promises that leads to a bright future for the entire world. God says, send him away. Don't be displeased about it. Just do it. Which would give Abraham some comfort. He knows that Ishmael, even being sent off into the wilderness, is going to be fine. He will be taken care of. He's going to have 12 princes. He's going to have a gigantic family. He's not going down the road to die. God's going to take care of him. This final line, I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. Out of deference to Abraham. God loves Abraham. And I say love in the present tense. Loves. In the desert, Hagar and Ishmael are out of water. They're dehydrated. Hagar sets Ishmael, or at least positions him in under a shade tree and then moves away because she can't bear to watch him die. He is apparently crying out, and God hears it. The name Ishmael again, he hears. God heard it and went to Hagar and said, don't be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Okay. Here Hagar is in front of a well. Notice the wording. Then God opened her eyes and she saw a well of water. The well of water was already there. God doesn't always let us see what's in front of us until we're ready for it, till we understand that He is in control of everything. God is giving assurance to her. Here's a well. It was always here. I will take care of you. It's so beautiful. So she gave the boy something to drink. All right. We go back to Abimelech and Abraham. Abraham and Abimelech have come out to meet. And Abimelech, I just highlighted this. We've read the story. He's asking Abraham not to deal falsely with him. Well, that's because Abraham did deal falsely with him. He told him that his wife was his sister, and about caused Abimelech to get dead. So Abraham gives 7 ewe lambs to Abimelech as a sign that he has dug a well and it's his. It's the reason I bring this up is because it's a transactional thing. It is a consideration. When you make a contract, you can have a handshake and have words and agreements, but a contract is considered illegally and binding when consideration has changed hands. In this case, Abraham has given you lambs as a sign of the contract. All right. And finally, verse 33. This has been a great chapter. 33. Abraham plants a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. A tamarisk tree grows an inch a year. When you see something like this in the Word, it's fun to look up and see what that means. Why? Why the species of the tree? Because it's slow growing. It would appear that Abraham was planting a tree that would grow up over a very long period of time. He was planning on permanency. He was planting a tree that future generations would stand under in the shade of this tree. It's beautiful. And there he called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. Thank you so much for joining. Would you please like and subscribe and join again? We'll continue tomorrow on our journey here through the Word, God willing. Have a blessed day.